What's going on, man? Uh,
What's up?
Normally I introduce, but I hit the wrong button. So everybody, we got Unga Bunga locked in right now.
What's
Um,
up?
yeah, what's going on, bro?
Uncle
So
Bunga in the house.
yeah, is it Unga Bunga or Unga Bunga?
It's whatever, man. I say Unga Bunga, but
Yeah.
I
Okay.
just I just chalk it up to people's accents. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So before we even go anywhere else with this, where did that name come from? How'd you come up with Unga Bunga?
um, there's been a couple songs that
Mm-hmm.
have had that are entitled Unga Bunga. I think Flavor Flav has one. But then there's another one by a guy out of Philly named Zeta Blacksmith, and
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the theme of the song was, that he's from the old school, and and he uses like symbolism as like weapons of bone blade and bone clubs, and just
Mm-hmm.
things like activities that are as old as time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fighting is one of those activities, which is as old as time, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I I sometimes use the hashtag of lowbrow activities because you
That's so dope. Yeah, I got you. I
know
feel
what I'm
you.
saying. So like
Yeah.
hunting, and fighting, and I think fighting is a great recreation, man. And even though
Yeah,
fighting's in the
absolutely.
Bible, so
Oh, we gonna get into that.
yeah.
We definitely gonna get into
Yeah.
that. So, we'll start from the beginning, man. How old are you?
I'm 33. I just turned 33.
33. Okay, still a young man.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Where were you born?
I was born in Bellflower, California, but
Hmm.
I
What's
kind of
that
grew
close
up.
to?
That's in LA County, close to
Okay.
LA. Uh,
All right.
I'm not even really familiar with the area anymore, but I know it's like in the near LA, near the downtown.
Yeah. Okay. Did
Yeah.
you were you raised there and everything? Were you born and raised in that area?
Nah, I was actually raised all over Southern California, from LA to Inglewood to Glendale to
Hmm.
the Inland Empire, which would be like Fontana, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga. Those are probably the more prominent places, or not. I guess the places that we stuck around the longest.
Yeah.
Um, all over, but it was kind of like a different school every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
What was uh, what was Little Unga like? Like the younger years up to maybe middle school.
Up to so little, little Unga Bunga has been Unga Bunga, since I was little, man, because I got picked on a lot in school, and my dad didn't necessarily like that. I would get picked on,
Hmm.
and so he would teach my sisters and I how to defend ourselves, and that kind of evolved after my parents got divorced, and I kind of that really affected me as a 8-year old,
Hmm.
and kind of caused me to be angry, and with the most due respect to my father, there was a kind of a turning point where it was like right after the divorce, and we were living with my uncle in Ontario, and I was sharing a bed with my cousin Giovanni, and there was a Christmas where the whole family got together, and us Latinos, like, Christmas Eve is crazy, man. And so we were at my uncle Jesse's house in Ontario, and me and my cousins, it was like 8 of us. We went to the mall, and I stole a bunch of these yo-yos from this mall, and I didn't steal enough for all of us. And when we got back to the house, um um everybody had yo-yos, and my oldest cousin, um he, my oldest cousin punked me for the yo-yo that I was hoping to have. And my dad saw that my cousin punked me like this, and he told all the cousins out of the room. And my dad looked at me in the eye, and he was hurting at this time. The divorce was real fresh, and
Hmm.
so he was going through a lot as a man, and handled that situation, the best he could under the circumstances. And he smacked me across the face and he said, "Don't you ever let anybody treat you like that again." And
So let's just pause real quick.
yeah,
Somebody punked you, so he smacks you to teach you not to let somebody punk you.
yeah.
That sounds very much like my dad. Very, very much like my dad. Yeah, like
You know?
just screaming, "Don't ever let somebody hit you while they're hitting you."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And right
yeah.
after that, I ran out of that room, tears in my eyes, and I found my cousin. I think there's like a 5-year age difference there between the oldest cousin on my dad's side and myself. And I found him, and I'm 8 years old or so, and I just start pounding that dude, like with tears in my eyes, like
Yeah.
thinking that this is what my dad wanted, which I know it's not what he wanted.
Hmm.
He just didn't want me to be a doormat for people,
Right.
because often I was, and and because of like there was that, and then I was wrestling with my family being broken in school. It just kind of evolved into it evolved into something that it shouldn't have, man, and it just seemed like that would be my life, not just into middle school, but leading up to like when I was an adult, you know.
So that was like Samke just said, Bunga awakened. Like that was the day Unga Bunga was born, isn't it?
Pretty much, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 8 years old, you were taught a lesson right there that you picked up one way or the other. How'd that go? Like branching, like once you arrived in middle school, high school, were you troublesome?
Yeah, man. I got in a lot of trouble. More than a single father could handle, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And there was talks at times of sending me to like juvenile hall. I mean, I don't know how all that works. Obviously, you got to commit a crime to go to juvenile hall, but
Right.
you know, it's not like I wasn't doing those things. Like I said, the yo-yo story. That's
Yeah.
I was doing things like that at
Yeah.
8 years old. You know.
Let's get some more stories. Let's get some examples. What did
Well,
little Unga Bunga do?
it got kind of bad, man, when I was in I want to say it was 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Um my uncle had a bunch of these, and I won't say which uncle.
Cause you
But
ain't no snitch. That's
yeah.
why.
An uncle had gotten a whole box of tech decks. You remember tech decks?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the little
And he
finger
was, yeah, the
skateboards. Yeah.
little finger skateboards.
Yeah.
And he was like, go to your school and sell these to your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And um so I was like 8, 9 years old, 4th grader, going to school, selling stuff already. And
Yeah.
and I gave one to my friend because he said, "Hey, I'll pay you back." And so I said, "Okay." And he ends up stiffing me and tell, "I'll get it to you next week. I'll get it to you." These are little kids
Yeah.
talking like that with a
Yeah. Of
transaction
course.
about tech decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my uncle, like after a couple weeks, saying he still hasn't paid you back. What are you gonna do about it? And kind of provoking me, man.
Yeah.
And so I went and I found this kid, and I was a little bit bigger than my classmates,
Yeah.
and I
You
uh
don't say.
I grabbed this kid, man, and I remember it clear as day because I got in so much trouble for it, and I think I might have changed the course of this kid's life. But I grabbed his head and I smashed it into a wall, and then it was one of those rough walls, like brick walls, and
Textured.
I
Yeah.
yeah, textured, and I slid it on there, and he had a scar, and I ended up seeing him like in the high school days, and he
Mm-hmm.
still had a mean old scar, and was kind of like he was like the cool kid when that happened,
Yeah.
when he pretty much stole the skateboard from me, and and after that he was kind of like a scared kid, and I those are things that I feel bad for, but it was kind of being provoked. I was being provoked by people who would be mentors, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but those tech decks would evolve into other things, from from knives and brass knuckles that we would go to Chinatown and we would run out of Chinatown, these shops that would have like, I don't know if I know you're in Arizona, but in LA, in downtown LA, we have a Chinatown, and there's these shops that have plants, like cool bamboo plants, but in the back, if you go hidden in the corner, they got all kinds of illegal stuff. And like brass knuckles and double-edged knives and butterfly knives and stuff like that. And so what we would do is, from Glendale, we would hop on the beeline and we would go to Glendale, and we would grab like a whole handful of stuff and just book it.
You would just steal all of it, and then go
because it's
sell
not.
it.
What are they gonna do? They're gonna call the cops.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't call it. They shouldn't
like
have
robbing
those
drug
things.
dealers. Yeah, it's like robbing drug dealers.
And so I would sell those things at school. I would that evolved into selling pornography at school. Selling
but
it.
You didn't. But you didn't make your own and sell it.
No,
you just
man.
sold
No,
what you. Okay.
Yeah, I had an uncle who would steal those things.
Yeah.
And we would sell it at school.
You could sell it in school.
Yeah, and then I didn't really get too deep into like selling drugs. I think there was just a couple of times where a cousin and I, kind of went in on some weed, which was illegal back then. Yeah. And kind of just flipped it to our friends, but we didn't really do that very long, because shortly after that transaction our lives would change.
Okay, so it started out kind of high school mediocre, just robbing stuff, selling stuff, and then did it get deeper? You said after that transaction it kind of changed. How deep did it go?
It didn't go very deep, man.
Did it go super deep?
Oh, no, because my dad would take me to church as a kid, kicking and screaming, man, all throughout, like after we went to, probably when I was a kid, the church that we went to the most would have been Harvest. I don't know if you know who Greg Laurie is. It's a mega church, really big church in Riverside, called Harvest Christian Fellowship. And he would drag us there, man, kicking and screaming. And when I would be doing my thing in with my friends and stuff, I always had on the back of my mind, like, I could go to hell right now if I died. Yeah. And so that always prevented me from going deeper and deeper. Like it was there. It was at my fingertips. But whenever like somebody would pull like hard drugs out, I would think in my mind like, nah, I can't go down that road because I know I won't come back from it. And when somebody would pull out like a gun or something, I'd be like, oh, okay, this fool's crazy. I gotta kind of distance myself from these people, man, because I'm gonna get sucked in. Because I could get sucked in easily. And so it could have gone that way many times. Last time, I don't know if it was with you in 619 or if it was just with 619, I mentioned my cousin that passed away. But my cousin who passed away was a legit gang member. It's not like these dudes who are like in party crews or lowrider clubs. My cousin was a legit gang member, and we could have easily, I could have easily gone in that path, that trajectory.
You had an open door there.
Yeah. And not necessarily like with his gang, because part of my story of why I changed has to do with, out of all the people that I thought would have had my back in my moment of need, he left me hanging, and for the sole purpose of I wasn't a part of his gang. Yeah. And I could have easily gone down the same, trajectory as my cousin. But again, because of the fear of God that my dad instilled in me as a young kid, just by taking me to church, caused me to like keep all that stuff at bay, man, because people don't come back from it.
No. Can we hear what happened there with your cousin that changed your direction there?
So I had a cousin of mine and I used to, while we were in school, we used to go and party on the weekends like high schoolers do.
Yeah.
And every weekend we found ourselves in fights, fights with older people, um, just kind of tearing places up, man. And like to the point where we would like the first thing we would do when we went to a party was we would stuff our pockets full of bottles, ready for things to
Just
pop
red
off.
glass bottles.
Yeah, glass bottle,
Yeah.
just we would be in places like that, man. That's how we would get out of there.
Yeah.
And it kind of spiraled out of control after a while. You can only get away with doing that stuff until you meet the wrong person.
Yeah.
And that was something my dad always told me, like, you need to stop fighting because there's always somebody bigger and badder out there, and you could either get killed or you can kill somebody, and then what you're gonna do. And so um it exactly that happened. And as a 16-year-old, we started a beef with some guys from a gang, and that spiraled out of control. And then there was a point where my younger sister kind of happened to just be involved with these people in just a random incident where she was like an innocent person in this whole thing. And then it blended with my family life, and that's when it kind of got serious because my cousin and I, we didn't use any precaution, and we started like picking fights with these guys, just trying to like make somebody bleed and stuff.
Just being kids. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
man.
what
And
happened there? Like, do you want to tell the story?
about with my sister,
Yeah, your sister and what
you know
specifically you guys are doing and how to tie it in.
well, I won't get into too much detail about what happened to my sister just out of respect for her, but it was
Okay.
something that was disrespectful to my younger sister.
Okay.
And my cousin happened to be at the school that day, and I wasn't. And my cousin took flight on this guy, and that spiraled into like, oh yeah, well, we'll get you, and then we'll get you, and just this nonsense, kid stuff. And um and then Daniel, you're
I know,
funny, man.
Daniel, funny man.
and and so suffice it to say, man, there was a guy at the school who was like the younger brother of one of the main heads in this gang. And and I decided to pick a fight with him. And so at the school, I took flight on him, man. And matter of fact, this specific fight has followed me even as like a pastor. And a few years ago, I was teaching a Bible study to a bunch of college age folks, and there was a guy there that I didn't recognize, and he was just looking at me sideways, like confused the entire Bible study. And I was like trying not to get distracted by it. And then afterwards, I introduced myself, like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he goes, "I know you." And I was like, "You for real? Like from where? From high school or what?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Last time I saw you, you headbutted somebody cold in the nose." And I was like, "Oh man, you saw that?" And so this dude was able to, he was able to spot me out. But so I fight with this guy, and he turns it up, man. And I pretty much get expelled from school because they suspected that it was like gang related activity, even though
Yeah.
I wasn't in a gang.
What do you mean he
Um,
turns it up? Did he pull a weapon or something?
so there was talks of them jumping me. There was talks
Mm-hmm.
of them like finding me where I live and stuff like that. I was hearing stuff like that from my friends who
Yeah.
were on the street and happened to hear things. And so then somehow like we get each other's numbers, and I'm like, man, I was like, I'll throw down with your older brother, the guy who's like a leader in the gang. And like started talk like getting a little big for my britches there.
Yeah.
And um my cousin was involved, obviously, because he had gotten kicked out of school because he swung on the security, um, and it's just spiraling like this. We're just
Yeah.
talking, and so me being very gullible, a gullible kid, was like, meet me at the park, and we'll go one on one. And man, I think they go okay, and so we go to the park. Nobody shows up, but we believe to this day that they were actually scoping us out because somehow we go back to my dad's house, which was down the street from this park, or around the corner from this park, and my friend Sapo, who might fight in street beefs pretty soon, he goes home, and me and my cousin and another guy, we go and we light one up and we get all high, and I never would ever like get into any scrap under the influence of anything because I never wanted to lose any of these fights.
Yeah.
And for me, I wanted to be in my right mind whenever I was, in a scuffle. And so we go back to the house and we're like, hey, let's go to Fontana. So we're gonna go walk to the bus stop. And as we're walking, we see three cars roll up in unison, and like 15 heads come out of these cars, man. And we're looking at their hands. It's just me, my cousin, and this big old dude. Um, and he was a friend of ours from another school, but we're looking at their hands, dude. They got chains, they got bats, they got brass knuckles. I didn't see a knife, but it so happens that this fight's happening, and me and my cousin are doing pretty good, man. we're hanging in there like we never
Yeah.
hit the ground, and a bunch of them did.
I believe
And
it.
they were fighting like how little cholos fight. You'll get hit in the back of the head, you turn around, you swing on them, hit a couple, and then bam in the back of the head, you're getting jumped.
Yeah.
And while this is all happening, apparently, I'll kind of save it, but there was this moment where I realized we were in the thick of it, man, because I'm fighting with this dude, and I look to my right, and I see my cousin take a bat straight to his face, like full on swing, right to his
Wow.
face,
Yeah.
and my heart broke in that moment, man. I was like,
Coming
what
to his
did I,
face. Yeah.
what did I get us into?
Yeah.
And
Right.
at that moment, I stop with these dudes and I sprint, and I cracked this dude in his spine, man, and he goes down. And then there's this big guy there. He bear hugs me, and they just start wailing on me, like I was a piñata.
Were you a decent size back then too?
I
At what,
was probably
16, 17 years old?
I was
What?
probably about this size. I think I was 6'1" already,
Mm-hmm.
and I was probably a little bit lighter than I am right now, but way less
Yeah.
muscle,
Yeah.
way less
Okay.
muscle. People who have known me for a long time know that right now I'm in the best shape of my life,
Oh, no
you know,
shit.
and so I was pretty big back then, but I knew how to fight. That's what it is,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
so anyways, this big dude bear hugs me, and all of those dudes they just start swinging on me, man. I'm a
They go
piñata.
in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That night I looked at my body and I was like a tiger, just stripes everywhere. And
Were they hitting you with the bats too?
they were hitting me with bats and pipes and chains and brass knuckles. And so then out of nowhere, man, this is where I believe that God intervened and saved my life. Um, Out of nowhere, I'm being bear hugged by this big old dude. I decide to grab him by his groin, and I grab it and I twist it and I pull it because I'm
You
in
did.
survival mode,
You hit him with the old dick twist.
dude.
Yeah.
This dude, I made him pay, dude, for holding me. Ah,
Did you take it with you?
I
Did you go home with
could've-
some dude's dick in your hand?
I almost did, man.
Yeah.
Well, he lets go and everybody disperses. But what I didn't know was, and I won't, obviously I'm being very careful not to name names, but
Yeah,
my
yeah.
cousin that was with me, man, I gave him a knife before, this all went down. And and I believe that's why I'm alive today, because my cousin went in there like Braveheart. And I found out later, because I ended up talking to the guy that all this started with, and actually praying with him years later. And he told me, because I was like, look, man, I wanted to tell you that I forgive you for what you did that day. And he got all mad. He goes, you forgive me? He goes, there was 5 of us in the hospital that night.
Yeah.
And he goes, we all got stabbed too. And I was like, what? And so, we don't. So,
okay.
So we get to the house after all this happens, man. After that, I break free. I take a bat straight to my head. To this day, I still have a dent right here. And blood trickles down. And it was crazy, because after I got hit with the bat, I tell people to this day, like, I saw in black and white after I got hit in the head with that bat. I saw black and white for a good minute.
Jeez.
And so they take off, and we walk back to our house, like, all proud that we survived that. And not only did we survive it, we never went down. And so we're just kind of like, man, what just happened? That was crazy. And then my cousin looks down, and like, it looks like he sees a ghost. And I'm like, what's up? And I look down, and my shirt's wet. It's red. I had gotten stabbed. I got stabbed like 3 times. And it's funny, because we're like, what do we do? At this time, my dad was out of the country with my sister and my stepmom, and my grandma was at the house with me while this was all happening. And I was like, we can't go inside and show my grandma this. She'll have a heart attack.
Yeah, grandmas do not like when their grandsons get stabbed. That's pretty universal. Yeah.
Man, and so we're like, let's take the bus to the hospital. So we're walking to the bus stop, man. And then as we turn the corner, the police roll up on us hard. And they got us boots on our backs, shotguns to the back of our heads. What happened here? We know somebody called it in. What is this? And we're just like, we're the victims. Yeah. And they call the ambulance real quick, and they treated us like dirt, because they knew it was like some kind of gang related stuff. Yeah. So we were scumbags. We got what we deserved, And the EMT, after he's examining, he just looks at my wound, and he looks up at me, and he goes, you have no idea how lucky you are. He goes, an inch more. He goes, as a matter of fact, this is what he said. He goes, you are lucky you are overweight. An inch more, and you wouldn't be here right now. Yeah. And so I was like, man, what the heck? That haunted me the entire ambulance ride.
And you're like, I'm never doing cardio again.
This is my bulletproof vest.
Staying big. Fuck yeah.
And so, at this time, like, this is like one of the lowest points of my life. I had just gotten expelled from school. I got fired from the job that I had. There was this young lady in school that, I was trying to see. And and she pretty much said, oh, I like somebody else. And, kind of ditched me like that, broke my heart or whatever. Yep. Yeah, I got rejected. And they basically told me that I didn't even have enough credits to graduate. So all that hard work I had done for about 1.5 years to get back into school was just kind of down the toilet. It was a really low moment in my life. My dad had just told me before he left the country to go on vacation that I was going to end up under a bridge somewhere. Just because of the decisions I was making in my life. Yeah. And so all these things, this is the condition of my mind and my heart at the time. And so for the EMT to tell me that, it's like, why didn't I just die? Yeah. Why couldn't I just die? Like, why be alive? And so that question haunted me the entire ride. And when I go to the hospital, the sheriff is there. and he prints out. He presents to me 2 papers, and it's full of mug shots. And he goes, "Are these the guys who did it?" And I look over to my cousin, and we don't snitch. And because in our mind is revenge, and so we're like, we ain't gonna say nothing. And the sheriff gets so angry with me, and he's just like, I'm so fed up with this stuff. And he goes, I'm gonna tell you this right now, young man. He goes, if anything happens to any one of these guys on this paper, I'm coming after you. And so I was like, man, I can't even get revenge the way I want to get revenge, It was real frustrating.
Yeah.
And so then this is how it progresses. I'm out of there within 2 hours. They staple me up, pop, 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 about 27 staples on my side. And then they staple me one on my head. And so I was walking around like Frankenstein with a staple in my forehead. And so then they go, here's a phone, call somebody to pick you up. So step 1, call all the homies. They got my back, right?
Yeah.
Well, none of them wanted anything to do with me. None of them wanted, because, there's police there. It's police out of the way. Yeah, it's out of the way. It's all the way over there. We're all the way over here.
Yeah.
Step 2, call some, near family members, because my dad, again, he's out of the country. I call family members. They're like, nah. You got yourself into this. You can get yourself out. And they said, call your mom. My mom was my last resort because I didn't really have a relationship with my mom in these days.
Right.
And she's all the way in Inglewood, and we're all the way in Colton. And the response she gave me wasn't necessarily the response that I think was conducive to our relationship at that time, man.
Yeah. She
kind of complained. And it was like, Mom, don't you understand? I almost got killed right here. And she was like, I gotta go all the way over there. It was hurtful to me. I mean, I understand it now. It's like, dang.
Yeah.
But
that's a long drive to pick up somebody who just got stabbed. Forget it.
Yeah. And not only that, but it's like, this is what you're doing to yourself. And so it caused me to like ask questions, man. Like, I'm really in this alone. I'm really by myself. So furthering that, the frustration with that question from before, why am I alive? Why couldn't I just die? Why do I have to, live to realize how alone I am in this world?
Yeah.
And my mom finally comes, and I think my aunt who picked up my cousin, she was like offering to take me, but by this time my mom had already was like, I'm on my way. And I remember my aunt was angry with me at that time too, because like I said, it was my fault that I got my cousin in this. And so it's understandable. And my mom finally picks me up and says, we're going to your dad's house, and you're getting your stuff, and you're moving to Inglewood, because if you stay out here, you're going to die. And so we go to Inglewood, and as we're on the 10 freeway, and I'm just looking out the window, and I'm still asking this question, why am I here? If it was so close, and all logical, reasoning points to that, I should have died that day. And I look out the window, and it was kind of a stormy evening. And you ever seen like when it's stormy, and then the sun pierces through the clouds, and it has those dope like rays that are coming out, right? I remember
every church has that picture. Yeah, every church has that one fucking picture. Yeah.
Well, I saw that. It was one of those days where those sun rays were piercing through the clouds, and I was reminded of a book that my dad always tried to tell me to read called Piercing the Darkness, which was a Christian book that he would always like tell me to read, like, hey, maybe this will like pique your interest. And in that moment when I was like reminded of that book, I sensed the Lord speak to my heart, man, saying, I'm piercing the darkness of your heart. Are you ready to follow me? And that's when I said, all right. And ever since then, man, I've been I've been following him, and things changed. And that's not to say that overnight I became like this pastor. And
Yeah.
it
It's a
was
work
it
in
was a
progress.
process. It's a work in progress
Process.
for all of us. It's not an overnight thing. For a whole year, I kept finding myself in these situations, and every single time it was a lesson. Like I need to stop messing around with this lifestyle. It's gonna, if I keep coming back to this, like the Bible says, as a dog returns to its vomit. If
Hmm.
I keep returning to this vomit of a lifestyle, I'm gonna end up where I was. And it happened because I got stabbed, right? I heal up and I'm back, back with my friends not too long
Yeah.
after, and I'm going to these parties, and these dudes are finding me at all these parties. And then
Hmm.
there's one time where these dudes straight up shot at me. And so now I'm dodging bullets. And
Yeah. It's getting worse.
it's getting worse. And so finally I just say, you know what? I surrender, and I'm just gonna pursue, God, the things of God, and have myself in church. And then here's where it all ends. Okay. So the big guy who bear hugged me and they
The
had their
big
way
one
with
that
me
bear
like
hugged
that.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pause.
He ends up becoming like this gangster. And
Hmm.
I hear at church, because a bunch of my friends had started coming to church with me. And one of them, who kind of still had his ear to the things happening in the streets or whatever, he comes up to me right before church on a Wednesday, and he says, "Hey, so and so was kind of bragging on his driveway. He pulled out his new sawed-off shotgun and pulled out a slug and said that slug has your name on it." And I was just like, "What, man? I'm not even in the streets no more. Like, what?
Yeah.
Why are these dudes like? Didn't they get enough like that day?" And so a week or so later, or some time goes by, and the same dude walks up to me again before Wednesday night service and says, "Hey, so and so, remember how he had that slug with your name on it? That sawed off blew up in his leg, in his pants, blew his leg clean off."
Jesus. Yeah, that sucks.
And we were like, "What?" And so we left church, and my friend that was with me was like, "What are we doing?" I said, "We're going to go to the hospital and we're going to pray for this dude. The guy who was going to kill me.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
guy who bear hugged me so that these dudes could stab me, punch me, stick me, whatever.
Yeah.
We go there, and all his homies are in the lobby of Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. And they're all like a bunch of emotional cholos, bald headed dudes, and they're just like, like, "Man, I can't believe this happened." And so I walk in, and they look like they see a ghost, and they're just like, "What is this dude doing here?" And I say, "Hey, man, I'm here to pray for so and so." And they're just like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, can I go see him?" And they're like, "Nah, he's in ICU. If he sees you, his heart rate's gonna go up." And so, you
Uh,
know, I was just like, "Well, let's pray right now." And so I got all these homies in like a hippie circle, holding hands in the lobby of the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, and we pray for this guy, and he makes it. And his older brother, who was a main head, he goes, "You don't have to worry about us anymore. That's it. It's done."
that's
And I
good.
would run into these guys later on, and it was done, man. I was able
Done.
to put all that stuff behind me. I don't
Yeah.
have to, be afraid or walk with my, head over my
On
shoulders
a
or anything
swivel.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Do
man.
you, do you still hear about them or anything? You still talk to any of them? No.
No, I'm so far removed from. I mean, anybody in high school at some point, like
Yeah.
California is a really big hustle bustle place, and
Mhm.
even when I lived in Fontana, I lived in South Fontana, like in the more hood part. Like I'd never heard or saw anything from these guys. The only time I ran into one of them was when I was trying to get my GED before I decided to go to college, and I was trying to get my GED at this like night school, and one of the guys, actually the main dude that we kicked it off with,
Mhm.
he was there, and he was like a grown man still acting like a kid, and like they kicked him out of the adult school class. You're not forced to be there. They
Yeah.
kicked him out, and he slams the door, and I'm just like, oh man. And so I go, I'm gonna go talk to this guy. And so I leave the class, and that's when he goes, what do you have to forgive me for? And so I was able to share with him, and we were able to make peace.
Yeah.
That was, I want to say that was like maybe 6 years after all that stuff went down. Yeah. And it's, I don't hear nothing. I'm so far removed from all that, man. God really took me out of it, man. And that's the story.
We're gonna make a little bit of a lateral move real quick. I'm glad you set that story up because we're gonna lead into a little bit more of that in a minute. But when did you start training in martial arts? When did actually competing enter your mind?
Well, I've actually never competed in anything, as far as like sports related. When I was,
no organized sports at all, nothing at all.
I mean, not until this year. This year is literally my first year competing in anything, and
you're killing
it. When I want to say when I was in middle school, my dad had me in boxing for about a year, and in that year I was able to get like the basics down, and that's actually what helped me. Like when I say me and my cousin were fighting like grown folk, like we were kids, 15, 16, 17 years old, fighting college kids and stuff, and and I believe it was because of boxing. And then in high school, I did some wrestling, and I really liked wrestling. I loved it, but I was never allowed to compete because of my grades. Yeah. I had bad grades all throughout high school. So, and then
so you got a little taste of those couple things.
Yeah. I never sparred when I was in boxing, but I got all that fighting in school and streets and stuff, right?
You didn't need to spar. You just jumped into fighting.
Yeah, and so when I was 19. By the way, so when all that happened, I was 17 years old, and it was right before I became a Christian. I was 17 years old in April, 2007, and then when I was 19, I decided to join adrenaline combat sports because it was like I need something to do with my time. I want to get in shape, and I loved boxing. I loved wrestling, and so let me join a gym. So I joined Adrenaline Combat Sports in Rancho, and I did that for a good year or two, and that's where I kind of got a taste of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I really liked that. I got a taste of starting to learn how to kick, and I only did that for a year, and the reason why was because they actually wanted to sponsor me, but the stipulation was you can train here for free, but you have to train here 40 hours a week. And I was like, I need to get a job, dude.
So it sounded like they wanted you to go pro.
They wanted to sponsor me, man.
Yeah.
And and so kind of getting fast forwarding, many years, like almost 15 years now. I always wondered like what it would be like to actually compete. So yeah.
So how did you find street beefs? How did you end up in street beefs?
I think I came across a video on YouTube. Like, you know what it was, man?
You missed the good old days.
No.
So yeah. So while most men are like sneaking porn, you're sneaking street beefs videos. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, porn is bad for you guys. Let me just say that. Anyways.
Yeah, it's not. They're training videos. Learn that shit. You'll use it later.
Listen, I was. You know what I used to. There was. You know how like you go through these rabbit trails on YouTube, and I was watching. I saw this like thumbnail of road rage videos, like compilation videos, and it was like these dudes fighting. And I just kind of thought it was funny. These road rage videos were hilarious to me. And then, you just kind of keep pushing.
Keep on going.
Next one, and then boom, street beef pops up. And I think it was the ones in Virginia. And then, so that's when I first started seeing them. Yeah. And I think maybe like 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, um, I saw Shinigami's fight, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh snap! Like, look at this big old dude. Like, no
Yep.
disrespect, but and at this time I was as big as he was. I was
Yeah.
335 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, well, he's like me, like sitting on the couch eating chips, watching UFC, and saying I could do
Shout out
that.
Shinigami. Yeah,
Shout out
that's
Shinigami.
the entire world did that. They're like, "Fuck, if he can do it, I can do it." Yeah, that
Well,
head
no,
kick. Everybody thought that.
no, I was thinking like, I was like, oh shoot, he's one of those guys who says that, but actually went and did it,
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
wasn't gonna do that. I couldn't do that. I couldn't in those, like, when I saw that video. There's no way I was landing a head kick, and no, not only that, I hadn't even punched the bag for years, and so that just tripped me out, and I kind of became a fan of Street Beefs because of that. Um, and then I started following it on the low. I actually had gotten off Facebook because I was just kind of done with the social media stuff. And then, after like reading all this stuff, like, you have to be a part of the Facebook group if you ever even want to compete. And so I actually became a member of Street Beefs like a year and a half ago, and was just kind of like waiting for the time. But when I joined
Huh.
the Facebook page, I was 335 pounds,
Yeah.
and a few years ago, I found out that I was diabetic, and my family is plagued with diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have family members that are really suffering right now because of their diabetes, and when they found out about it, they didn't take care of it, they didn't take it seriously. And so, it's just been on my heart to try to get healthy, to try to combat this diabetes as much as I can. And
Mm-hmm.
to be here for my kids. I got 3 sons. I
Yeah.
got a wife, and I don't think it would be fair for me to die untimely and just leave all that to my wife.
Yeah.
So for her and for my kids, I just really been trying to make that concerted effort to get my health right. And the only motivation that I'm really able to find, because you get 10 steps forward and then you take 18 back, and the only thing that has been a really good motivation is the idea of having to compete or fight, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to lose, man, and so you don't want to be unprepared, and
It
so
hurts. Yeah.
you work hard to try to get that edge. And so that's kind of how Street Beefs has kind of given me that fire that I need to be able to keep working on my health, man.
Okay. So you were a part of Street Beef's West Coast for a year and a half before you ever competed, or
Yeah,
a year and a half,
about a year
about a
before I
year.
competed. Yeah.
So what made you transition from going, I'm watching it, to I need to get in there and do this?
Well, it's funny. I told you guys, like, people, at the DTP fight, they were like, "Oh, I could see why this dude was in King of the Cage or whatever," and it was like,
Mm-hmm.
"No, I was a sucker, right? Like, they taught, I was a guppy, and they tossed me to the Sharks, man." And
Yeah.
I had actually, I had signed up for the October one,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got COVID, and so that October one
Gotcha.
was gonna be my first one. And then I
Yeah.
made a post saying, "Hey, I'm not gonna be able to. I got COVID."
Yeah.
And then some dude, one of the promoters for King of the Cage, he messages me in a DM, and he goes, "Hey, you want to fight King of the Cage?" And he kind of I don't want to say too much about him, but he tells me, this guy doesn't train. This guy just drinks and parties, doesn't take care of his body. He
Yeah.
just likes to fight legally. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I've been training a couple months, so maybe I got
Yeah.
that edge on him. and
Mm-hmm.
and so I say, okay, let's do it. and
Hmm.
and man, I get TKO'd in the first 13 seconds, man.
Woo. And I
And
I didn't hear about that. I don't remember hearing anything about that. So
I'm
how
glad.
was it punches? Was it punches?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he comes in like a brawler,
Yeah.
and and I hit him with 3 good ones like before he
Mm-hmm.
even gets close to me. But
Yeah.
my hands were down. I had no footwork, no head movement, and he just loads up to get that one good punch,
Yeah.
you know,
And he landed
and
it.
and he landed it, dude. He landed
Yeah.
right on my jaw,
It happens. Yeah.
and
Ooh.
as I didn't get knocked out, but I got rocked. But what
Yeah.
happened was, as I got rocked, I sprained my ankle, and I couldn't really get back up because my ankle was just done.
It was
And
done. Yeah.
so, he did the little punches, didn't land any of those,
Yeah.
but they called it a TKO because I wasn't
You
getting
weren't
up.
responding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was my first time out competing, and all the guys there in the locker room, all the fighters were like, "What are you doing here, man?" They're like, "This is your first time just jumping in, huh?"
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Man, I don't know when this opportunity is gonna come again." So
Exactly.
yeah. So
So then you sign up for another one, and you fought who'd you fought? Doughboy first,
Doughboy, I
right?
fought Doughboy first.
Doughboy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Um, and then you won that fight,
I win a fight. Yeah,
and then they throw you against DTP.
yeah.
How did you feel going into that fight?
Going into the DTP fight,
Yes, because you had
um,
already had a taste. You know, you had a loss in the was it the King of the Cage, King of the
King
Mountain,
of
or
the
whatever?
Cage. Yeah, King
King
of
of
the
the
Cage.
Cage, and then you had a win against Doughboy, and that was a boxing match, I believe, against
Yeah,
Doughboy.
boxing match.
And so
Yep.
you're going in against DTP. How do you feel about all that?
Um, I had actually watched a bunch of DTP's fights because
Mm-hmm.
I had a feeling that I would be fighting that guy at some point.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because going to that fight, I was actually sick. I had a bad head cold. It wasn't COVID or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
I had a miserable head cold, and I actually didn't want to be there. But I didn't want to like jeopardize any future events by just dropping
Right.
out last minute. And
Because
so
you had
I was
already
like,
dropped. You had already
yeah,
dropped one time at that point. You can't do it
exactly.
twice.
Yeah, so I was kind of
Yep.
like, man, I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
and I was, and not only that, but I have major, like I'm still getting used to the whole competing thing. So that stress
The
is,
adrenaline still gets to you. Yeah.
yeah,
How do you deal
man.
with that? What do you do to deal with that?
Um, you know what? Last fight out, I don't think I handled it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for the DTP one, I breathed in my nose and out my mouth as calm and deeply as I could. And part the other way I dealt with it was a specific circumstance that day. Doughboy was one of the first couple fights that day,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all very excited to see like what work he put in.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember being ringside cheering for him, and I saw that dude, like I saw him elevate himself
Yeah.
right there, and it was very inspiring to me. Um, because right before that, I was kind of just sitting. My coach was there. His girlfriend lives around the corner from that spot, and so she was there with us, and he was kind of like hanging out with her there at the fights before it was all starting, and I was just with my headphones, just kind of just in the corner in the back,
Yeah.
and Doughboy walks up to me. He goes, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he goes, "How you doing?" And I said, "Man, I'm just trying to breathe right now." And he goes, "Yeah, me too." And I was like, "You're nervous?" And he goes, "Man, I'm just so nervous I can't even, function." And so I was like, "Yeah, me too, man." And so then when he gets in there and he takes care of business, I was just kind of like, man, I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to
That
go now,"
hypes you up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I had a really cool talk with a street vendor too,
Mm-hmm.
because he recently became a Christian, and it was really cool because we got to chop it up about the things
Yeah.
of God there at the
That's a
event.
cool dude right there.
Yeah, it got my mind off of the fight that was coming,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to talk about things that are my life, um, and things that I know will be here when I'm done fighting. And so it was really good for me and healthy for me. At my last fight with Street Beefs,
Mm-hmm.
man, I was all in my head the entire time, all the way up until the fight.
Yeah.
I was all in my head, man. And I also, I had at that time I had some relationship quarrels going on with members in my family at the time, and those are things that were on my mind. And so I was kind of just, not really healthy mentally, and so that's why I wasn't able to like focus before the fight.
How does your family feel about your fighting? Like your
They're all
wife,
very
your kids?
supportive.
They are. That's awesome.
The only
That helps.
person that seems to be not so supportive is my dad. Um, and I understand why. He doesn't. I think part of him still feels like this is me kind of going back to what I was doing.
Backsliding a little bit.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he sometimes feels like I don't think he's concerned about me backsliding, but I
Yeah.
think he's concerned about me like doing the things that I did in the past, in terms of for different reasons, doing the same things but for different reasons. But it's not.
Right.
It's totally different. It's competition. There's no hate in it. Um, and actually, shout out to Benil Dariush, um, because he's the one who kind of taught me that. I did an interview with Benil Dariush, who's a UFC fighter. I think he's
Mhm.
like number 3 lightweight contender right now in UFC, and I did an interview, and I was just like, "How do you manage being a fighter and a Christian?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not fighting from a place of hate. I'm fighting from a place of love, and there's no hate in my heart, and there's no animosity, and it's really just a test of skill." And
Yeah.
so, Paul the apostle writes in Corinthians about boxers, like he goes, "I box so as not to be punching the air." In other words, I'm not boxing just here shadow boxing. I'm like fighting for something, you know, and with intention. And so that's kind of like what Benio said to me. So that's where I'm at, but I don't think my dad's just not there yet.
Yeah.
He's watched the fights with us and stuff, but the rest of my family,
Would he come
especially
to
my
an
wife,
event?
I don't know.
Would your
I try
dad
to
come to an
tell him.
event?
I try to tell him like if I fight Shinigami, I would want him there, and he just
Yeah.
kind of goes, "Oh." He's like, I
So,
don't know.
and the reason why I ask is because the vibe, the family aura that happens at these events, you cannot pick that up just even hearing about it. Like, you could describe it and still not understand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's dope.
So,
Yeah,
I think if he saw that or felt that, that might
yeah,
help change his mind for sure.
yeah.
So,
Matter of fact, my coach Sway, like that dude, and really he's my friend,
mhm.
but he does coach me. And at first, when I was like, "Hey, let's do street beefs," he was kind of like, "What, dude? Like, come on, man." And he was like real
That's what
skeptical,
everybody
but
says. Yep.
after the last couple ones or the first couple ones, he was like, "Man," he goes, "That's cool. That whole
Yeah.
thing is so cool." So he's supportive of it too. But most importantly, the support from my wife has been like the best thing, man, because
Hmm.
she when I told her that I was gonna fight DTP, as soon as I found out, she did her research. She watched all his fights within like 15-20 minutes,
Really, that's
and
awesome.
she was like, "Miles, don't even bother, trying to feel him out because he's gonna come out swinging." And
Hmm.
she goes, "You just you." She said, "You take it to the ground as soon as you can." And so I was just like, "Yes, ma'am," and I did.
Yeah.
you know, so it's been
Have your
cool.
kids started training yet?
I always try to show my kids little things here and
Hmm.
there. They got their 1 and 2s and 3 and 4s down, and they like to wrestle already, but they're still kind of young, so
How old are
it
they?
they're all about to have birthdays, and so it's pretty much 7, 5, and 2. They're all gonna have birthdays in a couple months
Gotcha.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're a little young, and but they're interested in it.
Getting there. Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
they'll be there here in the next few years. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, what is next for Unga Bunga? Like
What you
you say,
mean?
if I fight, Shinigami. Street beefs wise, what's your goal in street beefs? Where you headed with this? Who do you want?
I want Shinigami. You
And
know.
you want it? Okay, and you want a
Yeah.
belt?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember Chael Sonnen said, "If you're not fighting for a belt, like, what are you even doing in there?" And so,
Ooh, that's
I,
a personal attack to me right now.
it was to me too. I was like, man,
Yeah, just
maybe
having
that's
fun. That's what we're doing.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
and I am about that too. Like, I even though there's so much anxiety and stress leading up to the
Hmm.
fight, once it's like the first punch is thrown, I'm having fun, you
Yeah.
know, and but you know what? I think that the belt is attainable, and
Very much
and
so.
so
Yeah.
that's why I'm like my kids actually want me to get that belt.
Yeah.
My
I mean,
kids want me to get that belt.
and that's a great goal to have. That really
Yeah,
is, especially if your kids want it. That adds to the motivation. So,
yeah,
you are a
yeah.
pastor at a church. Are you a full time pastor? Is that what you do for a living?
No, no.
Okay.
I'm actually a media specialist for a local government entity, and I'm just trying to protect myself here. So I don't know if it's you know,
Understandable how
you
they
know,
feel about that. Yep.
I don't know how my supervisor and my department knows what I do, and so they're cool with it. But
Yeah.
it goes to elected officials and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
You don't want Biden finding out.
not
Just
that
run
high
that
up,
right up
man.
the chain. Yeah. Run that right up the chain.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do you balance stepping in a cage, punching somebody in the face, and then preaching to people? Like, where do you
Yeah.
find that balance? Because to me, I know, what's his name? 619 made a comment earlier about me being an atheist and how this conversation might be awkward, and it's really not.
Mhm.
But I don't know that I would be able to find balance in that. I don't know,
Mhm.
because I don't know much about that side of your life. So, how do
Yeah.
you find balance there?
Well, like I said, it goes back to what Benil shared with me, man. Like
Right?
he's a solid believer, in my opinion, a mature believer, because there's some guys that you kind of wonder about. Like in the UFC, there's guys who say thank God this, have,
Mm.
tattoos that are like scripture, and then like there's some wild things coming out in the media about them,
Yeah, well, no, you're talking about John Jones, and I
Right.
get that. Yeah, I get that portion, that part. I completely understand. There's no hate in it, but
Hmm.
how do you balance it with people you're trying to teach? You know what I mean? Because in my mind, how is it not hypocritical to teach love for everybody? Because they don't understand it. They don't fight.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you
Yeah.
stand in front of a bunch of people and tell them love everybody, and then
Yeah.
go crank DTP in the face? You know what I mean?
again it's because you're competing, and you're not fighting from a place of hate or animosity, and I know the difference because I used to
Well,
fight
what I'm
from a
saying is
place of hate.
they don't. They
Right.
don't.
I
That's
think
what I'm
most
saying.
people
Like,
do, though, and maybe because,
you
check
think
this
so?
out. Yeah, because Jesus, one of his teachings that was very controversial and hard for the people not to understand but to accept
Mm.
was that, for instance, murder. He said that if you have hated somebody in your heart, you have committed murder. If you have lusted upon somebody that is not your spouse, then you've committed adultery. In other words, these are things that begin in the heart.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody knows what it is to hate. And I think
Yeah.
if somebody were to say that they've never hated somebody or something, then they're not being honest, because there's a lot to be spiteful for in this life, I think.
Yeah.
you know,
Very
and
true.
and so that's what I mean. Like I think people, especially the people that are in church, they're there for a reason. You
Yeah.
know, they're there because and I know that there's always going to be like some bad eggs in the bunch. I don't even know if that's the right phrase, right?
Yeah.
But I know that there's hypocrisy at times in the church, but when there's people there that are honest and genuine with themselves, they know that they're there because they need Jesus, because he's forgiven them of that hate in their heart, and maybe they didn't, express it the way I did, but they have in
Mm.
other ways, maybe. But again, if you hated somebody in your heart, then you have committed murder. Like that's a
Yeah.
very, very hard truth to swallow. And so that's what I mean by, like, I don't think it's too far removed. It may not look the same. And that's what's
Yeah. No,
beautiful about
I
church,
get
man.
you.
You know?
Yeah. Hmm. That's a fascinating way to look at it. I like I said, I there's a lot of people that are going to be watching right now that'll be able to relate to that, but I can't relate to the religious aspect of it. I
So when
just
you're in
just
there
can't wrap my
fighting,
mind around it.
like, is that a place you go to in your mind and your heart? Like, I want to kill this
Me,
fool, you know?
man, I don't want anybody to die, but
Right.
I do like hurting people. I just do. I like to hurt people, um, and I get to legally do it in that cage. It's fun to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it is a test of skill sets, but for me, it's not really even that because I don't train. I just
Yeah,
show
right.
up. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean? So it's not even. I can't test something that I'm not trying to develop.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So,
pretty cool that you do that though, man. I like that. Yeah.
yeah.
But I
Most
mean,
people
think
call me
about
an
it.
idiot. Yeah.
Dude, think about it. After the DTP fight, like that was one of the sweetest guys I've ever met, you know?
DTP is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and every single person you fight, you'll be friends with. Just
Yeah.
about damn near. Because whatever, I don't know what it is about fighting a man, but you just all of a sudden you guys are just best friends.
Yeah,
It's
like
weird.
it's
It's
a
weird.
intimate experience, man. You know,
Very much so. Yeah.
you're sharing that very
Those
vulnerable
emotions.
space. Yeah, think
Mm-hmm.
about it. Fighting is a vulnerable thing, man. There's no excuses, there's no
No.
lies. It's all right there raw, and you share that with that individual. And so yeah,
Yeah.
there's that camaraderie after. But,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. So you're making a belt run right now. Do you plan on taking that belt and then dropping down in weight? You're gonna stay in heavyweight and just smash it by up there for a little bit.
yeah, I definitely need to drop weight because
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done my latest A1C test. But when I was 275 is the last time I did my A1C test, which tests the amount of sugar your blood carries,
Mm-hmm.
and it's supposed to be like in like 5.6 or something like that, and mine was like at 8.5, and so that was at
You're doing all right.
275, and so right now I'm at 255, and
Yeah.
so it's like I need to stop hanging out in heavyweight, man. I need to start
Mm-hmm.
dropping down to see, you know, if I can get these numbers down, because
Do
if
you
I
have a
get those,
nutrition coach?
I don't, man. And I've been trying to do a lot of the research myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I what I've been focusing on right now is weight training. You know,
Yeah.
like I do you know, my drills and stuff to kind of stay fluid with the
Yeah.
movements, and developing that better. You know, what's his name? No Love will tell you, man. Like my head movement has been, you know, improving to the point where he's like, it's funny because last week we sparred, and then last night we sparred, and last week I shaved my beard off, and he goes, "Where'd this head movement come from? It came when you shaved your beard, like you lost all the weight from your face and you can move your
Yeah.
head now." But these are
You're
things that
like the
I'm working
opposite of Samson.
on. That's what he makes it seem like. But I've been focusing on weight training more to kind of, I don't want to stay at heavyweight as like a fat guy. I want
Mhm.
to, if I'm going to be a heavyweight, I want to be like conditioned and have strength, you know? So
Yeah.
I've been kind of
Keep that weight
teetering.
training up.
Yeah. I've
Keep
been
it
trying
up.
to lift heavy, man. And so
Because
it's,
what a
yeah,
lot of people don't understand is lifting weights, you're burning calories for about 24 hours after you lift those weights. But
exactly.
when you're doing cardio, you're only burning calories during that cardio.
Yep.
So if your nutrition is on point and you're lifting weights, you're gonna be
Yeah.
burning calories 24/7.
Yeah. My nutrition is way better than it's been in the last year right now, you know, like
Keep
really
that up.
trying the carb cycle and
Yeah.
stuff, you know, doing no carb some days, low carb some days, and then high carb some days. And so, you know, it's I feel I get people telling me all the time, you know, man, you're like, your body's changing, dude. And
That's good. Yeah.
so that's
When
to
other people
me,
start to see it.
yeah, that's results.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm definitely working on that.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
super awesome. Well,
But after
it's
the
been
belt,
dope, bro.
you know,
Go
slimming
ahead.
down.
Yeah, no, tell me what
Yeah.
we got. I thought we was done right there, bro.
No, I
After the
was
belt, what do you got?
after the belt, I'm slimming down for sure because it's about my health at that point, you know, like
So are
about my
we get
blood sugar.
are we gonna see Unga Bunga and Wama one day?
I don't know about
About a
that,
$1.35.
man. That's that. No, I
Yeah.
don't think so. I think maybe like 210, 205.
Two
You
ten.
know,
That'll be a solid weight. You
I'll take
fast and
my
strong.
yeah, I'll take my test at that
Yeah.
time and see where my blood is at that time.
Unga Bunga and Duva.
Yeah.
That'll be good scrap. Yep. Well, all right, my man. You have a great night. I appreciate you being on, bro, and I appreciate everybody tuning in.
Yeah, you too, man. Let me know if you ever need prayer. All right.
I will keep you posted. You guys have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, bro. Later.
See.
Thanks again for everybody tuning in, man. That's a super dope dude. I love Miss Munga. You guys have a good night, man. Where's that button at? It's in here somewhere. There it is.